a political idea of the current Indian government. Maps are something that can change the reality. The Balkan states are a heavily divided area of Europe. Maritime state has maritime boundaries. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The topic for today that I will be discussing is a bit different, I would like to say. And it's regarding geography and, in particular, maps. What purpose do they serve in global geopolitics? And why do humans need them in the first place? And how do they help us in navigating and in knowing where we live and where to go and what to find out? Um, since the ancient maps of Imago Mundi made by the Babylonians in present-day Iraq, uh, humans have tried to, or cartographers have tried to understand where we live and how does the world look like, what are continents, where do land masses start, where do they end, where does the sea start, where do rivers start, where do physical bodies begin, where do they begin and start. And this has been this quest for finding these physical anomalies, or where the realm starts and where the realm ends. This was fueled by the thirst for knowledge, number one, and this thirst for political, the spread of political ideas, the spread of religion, the spread of philosophies, the spread of populations. And overall, you can see that over the period of time, maps started to include other continents, including the old world, which included Europe, Africa, Asia, and then it went on to, after the European age of colonization and exploration, to include South America, North America, and then also Australia. And we can also see quite amazingly in the earlier maps by Muslim cartographers like Al-Masudi and Al-Idrisi that their maps are quite different from the reference maps that we know today. And why do I say that? It's because if you look at, for example, the 12th century AD map of Al-Idrisi, that map basically depicts Makkah being the center of the world, and then it depicts for the first time that there is a Europe, there is an Asia, there is an Africa, or North Africa to be particular, and that there are oceans, and that it's a circular or a spherical world that we live in. And at the time, this was a very revolutionary idea. Even the map of Al-Masudi depicts the world as like this. And then we come to the modern reference maps of the nation states that we know today, post World War II. Now, what I want to emphasize over here before I go forward is that maps depict political perspectives. And those political perspectives are grounded in geographical realities or geographical prejudices by the cartographer that has made those maps. So, in essence, every map has a human element behind it or a human prejudice behind it. So, when you are referring to maps, it is better to refer to a plethora of maps and then draw a conclusion from them. What do I mean by that? Maps can, one map that you find of a particular geographical location can depict something, and if you were to find another map of that same political geographical location, it would depict something else. Examples of this can be seen in the famous example of Kashmir. If you're looking at a Google map of today, modern times, you're looking at it from India, it might show as Azad Jammu Kashmir or Gilgit-Baltistan as a part of India. Or if you're looking at it from Pakistan, it might show Indian occupied Kashmir as being part of Pakistan. Or if you're looking at it from a third party nation state, it might show that region as something that is disputed between the two nations. So these are the realities of maps that change from the point of view that you are looking at them, and then the political realities of the cartographers behind the ones that have made those maps in the first place. Now, if I were to give you examples of how one map can depict one thing and another can depict another thing, I would like to start with the examples of divisions. So, in a particular geographical space that you are viewing on a map, there can be linguistic divisions, political divisions, social divisions, religious divisions, ethnic divisions, and these divisions can be translated into political boundaries. A prime example of them being, for example, very simple, that France, a nation state in Europe, speaks French, and Spain, another nation state that borders France, speaks Spanish. This is a clear linguistic divide between the two nations. Similarly, if I were to give you another example from Europe, again, would be the Balkan states. The Balkan states are a heavily divided area of Europe on ethnic lines. Serbians live in Serbia, Croats live in Croatia, Albanians live in Albania and Kosovo. And these are the realities that we are sometimes known in the geopolitical sphere as Balkanization of Yugoslavia, or the ethnic divisions of the Balkans, basically. That is a ethnic division which is translated on a political map with the shape of nation states and nation state boundaries. Then these are, so this is number one, boundaries between nation states and boundaries between political entities. Then you come towards boundaries inside of nation states and inside of political entities. And a prime example of this can be India. So India is a very diverse nation state, to say at the very least. It has multiple languages. It has it currently has 28 states and 8 union territories, depending on if you ask a Pakistani or a Indian. If you ask a Pakistani, they would say that they have 6 union territories because of not recognizing Jammu and the division of Jammu and Ladakh. I'll come to that later. So, in particular, when you look at India, you can see these divisions, for example, in the Bombay state that was present in British India. That was divided into a Gujarati-speaking Gujarat and a Marathi-speaking Maharashtra. Now, this is again a linguistic division inside of India. We can come to the Indian Punjab. At the British time, it was East Punjab, and then India later on divided it into Haryana and Punjab. This shows two divisions, a religious division between the Sikhs of Punjab and the Hindus of Haryana, and a linguistic division between the Punjabi of Punjab and the Hindi Urdu spoken in Haryana. This is another division that you can see. And then we come to the division of Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh, which recently happened in 2019. Very controversial, to say the very least. This division basically depicts a political idea of the current Indian government. So if you look at Kashmir, the territory of Kashmir that is currently occupied by India, that is a Muslim concentrated area. And what the political class of India has done is that they have divided it politically into two separate entities, Jammu and Kashmir being a union territory controlled by Delhi, and Ladakh being a union territory controlled by Delhi. And what that has done is that it has paved the way for a future dilution of the Muslim population of Kashmir overall. It makes it easier for an Indian government in the future to dilute and bring Hindus to the valley of Kashmir and to sort of turn the Muslim majority into a Muslim minority. So there are political motivations behind changing of maps as well. On the surface of it, you might just think that this is an administrative division in order to make administration easier in Kashmir. But if you look at it from another perspective, by consulting other maps, by reading between the lines and between the geopolitical trickery that has been done, it has a deeper purpose. So this is just being another example that I wanted to share. You can have religious divisions as well that we can see in the example of Sudan and South Sudan, or Indonesia and Timor-Leste. These are a Muslim Christian state division. So you also have religious divisions in the world as well. there are different types of maps that can be used to depict different types of information. And the two in particular that I would want to discuss are thematic and reference maps. Reference maps basically show the political boundaries or the nation states that currently exist on the earth. And then we have thematic maps that can show, political densities, weather patterns, um, agri- uh, agricultural lands, uh, other physical features in a particular geographical area, and they can be used as data to understand a particular geographical area better. Um, there are other projections of maps as well. Many projections, the ones that I would like to discuss in particular would be one of the famous ones and mostly used around the world, the Mercator projection. The Mercator projection is famous because it's used mostly by the Europeans, the North Americans, and it's spread all over the world because of them. But there are certain problems with the Mercator projection as well, that it shows Greenland as being equal in size to the continent of Africa, but in reality you could fit more than 5 Greenlands in Africa. And there is this divide that it shows the global north to be larger than the global south. So these are problems that we have in the Mercator projection. Uh, in uh, in opposition to the Mercator's projection, we can see the Gall-Peters projection, which has tried to give a more proportional projection of the world by showing the global south to be proportionally as big as it really is, and the north being as small as it actually is. However, again, the problem with the Peters projection is that sometimes it's difficult to understand what nation states exist at the edges, because it sort of constricts the edges of the map on the north and the south point of a map. And then we have the Winkles projection. The Winkles projection tries to superimpose a round spherical world on a two-dimensional map. And this is the spherical world that I have talked about. That is one of the particular problems that cartographers have faced throughout time. That how do you accurately depict a spherical Earth on a two-dimensional map? That is one of the basic problems faced by a cartographer. And many people have tried to bring different projections in order to solve this problem. Maps, besides different projections and what they can show and what errors that they can have, maps have been used by different political regimes to impose their idea of reality on another people. And a prime example of this can be seen in the Berlin Conference of 1885, where the European colonization agenda basically started the scramble of Africa. And what that led to was a European power superimposing their reality of what Africa is without consulting the indigenous populations of Africa, and making the African population abide by those political lines that they drew in Berlin. And that ultimately became the reality of Africa once the nation states of the African continent started to become independent from their colonizers. Now, that is a big example of how an idea became reality and how an idea was imposed on a particular people through maps. And that over time became the wanted reality inside of the African continent. And it disregarded the actual ethnic divides or the religious divides or the social divides that exist in Africa, which has led to constant regime change, constant civil war inside of Africa, constant coups. You can see that France still controls most of the economic output of Western Africa, which is an output of the Berlin Conference, and how the British were able to control South Africa and the apartheid state of Africa during the time of Mandela. So these are realities that started off from maps, and then they turned into political realities of a indigenous people. This basically what I'm trying to show is how powerful maps can be. They're not just pieces of paper that depict certain cartoons or certain blocks. They are political ideas, and they have a particular agenda or prejudice behind them always, because that is the human experience. And when you are reading a map, you have to have a critical lens while viewing maps. And this is what I would like to emphasize for the audience as well. Coming forward from the Scramble of Africa and the Berlin Conference, if I would take you to maritime boundaries, the subject of maritime boundaries, after the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas, we as a global community have agreed on a set of boundaries in the oceans as well. And what I mean by that is that every maritime state has maritime boundaries, which is translated into a 12 nautical mile territorial sea, and then a 24 nautical mile contiguous zone, and then if you have a 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, that can also be a area which a country can exploit for its natural resources. Now, some countries like to depict their maritime boundaries as well on their maps. Some countries like to depict themselves as the center of the world. For example, if you look at a map of Japan, Japan will most of the times be the center of the world in the depiction of the maps that it creates, with the Pacific Ocean being on its western side, and Asia, Southeast Asia, and South Asia as we know it on its western side. So these are the geographical perspectives that nation states can have. And then we have the example of the South China Sea, where we have the 9-dash line, which is the cultural and traditional claim of the People's Republic of China on the South China Sea as being their maritime boundary, which is then contested by other nation states in the Southeast Asia region, like Malaysia, that claim that they have an EEZ over there, like Vietnam, like Philippines, like Brunei. There are certain mistakes that can also occur in maps, and maps are not always accurate. And this can be depicted by the famous idea of the island of California, which was created in a famous Spanish novel, which stated that there is an island of California west of North America. It has a lot of gold. It's like the Garden of Eden. It has a lot of black women. It has no men over there. It created this sort of rosy idea, which started a chain reaction of explorers trying to discover what there was in the Gulf of California, when in reality, we now know that California is attached to North America. But this basically shows that how powerful imagination and ideas on maps can be, that they can translate into realities and they can capture the imaginations of people, cartographers, and explorers together. And that is what I would like to leave you with, that maps are something that can change the reality of people, that can change the ideas of people, that can change also the political leanings of people. And they should be discussed, and they should be studied with a critical lens always. And they should not be taken on face value. You should always have a critical lens when viewing maps of different projections, different political nation states, and draw a conclusion by making those consultations. And that is one of the major reasons why maps are important even today, in the age of the internet, in the age of the GPS, in the age of Google Earth. Maps are important because they project our ideas onto other people, and we are able to share our realities with other people, whether those realities be religious, whether those realities be political, whether those realities be ethnic, linguistic, and so on and so forth. And that is why maps should be taught with a critical lens in our schools and at the university level as well, because there is no geopolitics without geography, and there is no accurate discussion of politics in the world without having a basis in geographical maps.